Imagine the darkness. But let this imagination not be like an ordinary darkness, where you wait for streetlights to turn on when night falls. This is a darkness where even the stars refuse to rise, where the cold does not seep into bones, but into the soul. Just imagine. There are humans, but there is no life, no fire, no warmth, no hope. At night, only the howl of the wind can be heard. People huddle inside caves, clinging to each other as they tremble. There are gods in the sky, but there is no mercy. While the gods drink wine and laugh in their golden palaces on Olympus, below, humans are freezing to death. To them, a human is nothing more than a weak creature scratching the soil, a being worth no more than an insect. In the eyes of the chief god Zeus, humanity was nothing more than a flawed experiment. Fragile, weak, cowardly, and perhaps the cruelest part of all. The gods wanted humans to remain in darkness, because a human who remains in darkness can never grow strong. But there was one thing the gods had forgotten. There is a feeling even gods cannot fully suppress: mercy, and that mercy was burning like a spark in the heart of a titan. Prometheus. On the day that would come, humanity did not know it yet, but within the darkness, a hero had already made his decision. Prometheus was not an ordinary titan. Even his name told his destiny. Prometheus, the one who foresees. Someone who can feel the future. Someone who can sense what is to come. That is why, on the night he decided to steal the fire, he had already seen what would happen to him. The wrath of Zeus, the fury of Olympus, the sharp rocks of the Caucasus Mountains, the unbreakable chains that would be struck upon his wrists, and the most terrifying part, the torture that would begin again every single day. He knew all of it, and yet he did not give up. Because Prometheus had something different from the gods. He loved humanity. Yes, humans were flawed. They were afraid. They were weak. But there was something inside them. A spark. Prometheus had seen that spark. The gods had not. So one day he climbed to the peaks of Olympus. It was night. The palaces of the gods were silent. The stars trembled in the sky. Prometheus approached the sacred hearth, the fire of the gods. Endless energy, light, power. He paused for a moment, because in that instant, every scene of the future passed through his mind. Chains, pain, blood, loneliness. But then he looked down. He saw the humans trembling in the darkness, and he made his decision. He hid a small spark inside a fennel stalk, and in that moment, the direction of history changed. Prometheus stole fire from the gods. When Prometheus descended to the earth, humans were still living in darkness. For them, night meant death. It meant cold, hunger, and fear. Prometheus placed the fire before the humans. At first, they were afraid. The flame was dancing, it was hissing, it was glowing. But then someone reached out a hand. The warmth of the fire touched their fingers. And in that moment, humanity pushed the darkness back for the first time. Fire was not only warmth. Fire meant melting iron, shaping the earth, cooking food. Fire meant civilization. For the first time, humanity lit up the night. For the first time, they looked at the sky without fear. The gods were watching this from above, and Zeus understood everything. The fire had been stolen. The wrath of Zeus ripped through the sky like lightning. A titan had dared to defy the order of the gods. This was unforgivable. Prometheus was captured. They took him to the farthest corner of the world, the Caucasus Mountains. Sharp cliffs, endless wind, freezing loneliness. The gods nailed him to the rocks with massive chains. But the true punishment was not the chains. The true punishment was the torture that would begin anew every single day. Every morning, as the sun rose, a shadow appeared in the sky. Zeus's eagle, massive wings, sharp talons, a merciless creature. The eagle would descend upon the rock. It would tear Prometheus's chest with its claws, and it would rip out his liver and devour it. But Prometheus was immortal. He could not die. At night, his wounds would heal. His liver would grow back. And the next day, the same pain would begin again. 1 day, 2 days, 1 year, 100 years, 1,000 years. Imagine, my friend. The same pain every single day. The same torture every single day. But Prometheus never cried out for help. He never begged for mercy. There was only one thing Prometheus did. He looked down. He looked at the earth. He watched the fires that humans had lit. Villages were being built. Cities were rising. Iron was being forged. Art was being born. Humanity was growing. Prometheus saw all of this, and he smiled, because he knew that his suffering was not in vain. If he had knelt before Zeus, the chains would have been broken. But he did not kneel, because some things are more precious than freedom. Honor, sacrifice, paying the price for what you believe in. And that is why, today, when you strike a lighter, light a match, or sit in a warm room on a cold winter night, you are not just seeing a flame. That fire is the legacy Prometheus left us. Within that flame lies the blood, the pain, and the rebellion of a titan. And now I ask you, my friend, even if the end meant eternal torture, would you risk everything for something you believe in? Would you stand against the gods and steal the fire? Or would you bow your head and choose to live in darkness? Leave your answer below, because this story is not just Prometheus's, it is the story of humanity.